We have been booted off our main highlight zone, inside the zone set because of elections this week. I guess that's pretty important.
I guess so.
But I'll tell you what's important as well, regional football, and when it comes to this week, pretty full slate of games. We've got one team in every classification, so 5 local teams playing this Friday. Out of all these teams, who's the most surprising team, you think?
Oh, without question, it has to be Belmont. You know, a program that's kind of struggled at times this year, but they've done an excellent job. They beat a really good Western team on the road last week that was athletic and quick and had speed all over the field, and Belmont shut them down, held them to 20 points, and they got the overtime win. So without question, the job Larry Getz has done down there has just been surprising and very refreshing, because Larry Getz is a good guy.
Yeah, we're going to get into the Braves in just a second as far as their preview against West Lafayette, but we're going to start in 5A, and you're talking about the Snider Panthers. 40-plus points in 4 of their last 5 games. They're going to be taking on Hamilton Southeastern, an explosive offense, and this is going to be here in Fort Wayne. So what do you see as being the keys as Snider takes on Hamilton Southeastern?
Well, if the defense that Snider played in the second half against Kokomo shows up this Friday night, they could be okay. They had great defense against Kokomo in the second half, not in the first half, but in the second half, and they ran the ball well from start to finish against Kokomo. John Nelson was unstoppable, 263 yards rushing and 5 TDs. Anytime you get 5 TDs, that's a good game. I don't care how many yards you ran for, but if the second half defense that Snider played last week shows up this week, Hamilton Southeastern is beatable. Now, it's not going to be easy. They're 11-1, and they play a really tough Indianapolis area schedule, and Snider has lost 4 years in a row to suburban Indianapolis teams, but it's not unthinkable to think that Snider could get this done if they play great defense and run the ball.
And you talk about John Nelson, the job that he has done, especially here in the second half of the season. Some credit goes to his line as well. They're big on that front line, and they're starting to mash some people.
Oh, absolutely. The offensive line was really good the other night in the second half, but the defensive line really came to play. Armand Bridgeforth of Kokomo had 231 yards at halftime and 25 in the second half. So that gives you an indication of how well the defensive front played against that wing T Kokomo offense, which was a little bit unique, a lot of misdirection, but the Snider defenders, the front 7, really showed a lot of discipline and gap integrity and played well against that. Now, that defense is going to have to guard a pretty special player this week in Gary Harris, who everybody knows about from his basketball exploits, but he's a great football player too. He's a 6'4", 200-pound wide receiver who has 800 and some yards in receiving this year, 11 touchdowns. Notre Dame's offered him a scholarship for football. Iowa has, Indiana has. So he is a really good football player in addition to his basketball exploits. So he's going to be a difficult test for that Snider secondary.
When you take a look at this game on paper, Hamilton Southeastern 11-1, the 4th ranking in the final poll as the regular season wound down. What do you see as the one deciding factor as we get into this game?
You know, I really think that the Snider offensive and defensive lines will determine whether they can win this game or not. Can they stop the Hamilton Southeastern offense from a defensive standpoint, and can they create holes for John Nelson to run through on that end, and also protect Brandon Phelps? Brandon Phelps had a really good throwing game the other night, 9 of 16 for 164 yards. He played really, really well, one of his better games this year. And so I really think this is going to be a game that can be determined by the Snider offensive and defensive lines. If they play great, Snider has a chance, and if they don't, well, then they could be in trouble.